Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the GM. It is your guy, Boulanger. Up next on the GM, Ravens preseason week number 2, players to watch. Let's talk about it. So, the Ravens face off against the Falcons on tomorrow afternoon, and I believe that this week is going to be kind of a make or break game for a few players. We're going to discuss 5 players that I believe we need to keep our eyes on because I think that these hopefuls are going to either make it or break it in their performance this week. Let's start on the offensive side of the ball and let's start with running back Owen Wright. I think Owen Wright um, is a young running back who showed a lot of promise. In fact, he was the leading rusher in last week's preseason game. And if you remember, Owen Wright showed some flashes in last year's preseason, which is probably why he made the practice squad. I think Owen Wright, although short in stature, he's a kind of a compact, strong, stout running back who does have some deceptive speed. And he can also receive the ball. And I think that if he puts on a good performance this week, I think that he will cement his roster spot and put Rasheen Ali's spot in jeopardy. Ali, we understand, is a fifth round pick. And to me, that doesn't mean a whole lot because we've seen the Baltimore Ravens make late round selections and then move on from those players pretty quickly. Case in point, last year, I think it was Kyle Blue Kelly that they moved off of. And then, of course, we remember Tyler Beatty, a running back that the Baltimore Ravens drafted, I think, in the late fourth or the fifth round, who they end up putting onto the practice squad. And then he eventually left for, I believe it was Denver. So we understand that the Baltimore Ravens certainly could move off of Ali if Owen Wright continues to perform well. And so I expect a good performance, a solid performance for Owen Wright tomorrow. And I expect him to cement his roster spot. Another player on the offense side of the ball, I think we need to keep an eye on is Dayton Wade. Um, he's a 5'9", about 190-pound wide receiver, but he's kind of performed well basically all off season. In training camp, he's made a couple of plays, and then he also was the leading receiver last week. And that doesn't mean a whole lot, but we need to keep our eyes on him simply because I think that sixth wide receiver spot could be up for grabs. I think the roster locks, and we will do our roster lock video probably early next week. But I think roster locks at wide receiver, of course, is Zay, Bate, um, Aguilar, Devontae Walker, and I think it's a question mark at 5 and definitely a question mark at 6. But I think Dayton Wade has continued to, show that he can do some things in the receiving game. And if he could return the ball on kicks and punts, I think that he would put Deontay Hardy's job in a little more jeopardy. But I think let's keep an eye on him and see what he does in week 2. I think if he puts on a good performance, he could continue to climb that ladder and give the Baltimore Ravens something to really think about. The third offensive player I want to talk about is a guy we have not seen much from, but he's been in conversation. And for what the reason? I don't know, other than being connected to the Baltimore Ravens through his father, Quadri Ismail, and that's Kadir Ismail. Ishmael didn't have a great college career, but when the Baltimore Ravens picked him up in the UDFA, he came with a lot of hype and a lot of buzz. I think a lot of the allure about Ishmael was his height, 6'6" and 200 and 10 plus pounds, who was slotted at the wide receiver position, but is kind of making a transition to the tight end position. And I think with that size, and he does have some athleticism, but we have not heard much from him in camp, and we did not see anything from him in week 1 of the preseason. With understanding, the Baltimore Ravens quarterback play was not good last week, but I think this is Ismail's opportunity to kind of make an impact, to kind of turn some heads and give the Baltimore Ravens something to think about other than just his height and his athleticism. Um, he gives me kind of Darren Whaler vibes. We know Darren Whaler is a tight end from several years ago that the Baltimore Ravens drafted. I think in the sixth round. He was drafted as a wide receiver, moved to tight end, and I think that uh, Ismail has some of the same measurables as a Darren Whaler. But the thing is, we have not seen much. So maybe he can make an impact this week, and then can kind of take another step in week number 3. I think he will certainly have opportunity, but what he does with that opportunity, we'll have to see. I think another position and another player that we must, keep an eye on is going to be at the backup quarterback position. What is Devin Leary going to do? Is he going to do anything at all to give the Baltimore Ravens hope beyond Johnson? Johnson did not play well last week. Heard a lot of criticism about Josh Johnson and his performance last week, as he, was definitely playing against other, backups, but did not have a good performance. And Devin Leary didn't come in and make us say, "Oh, he's the answer." In fact, it kind of makes you recognize the importance and the value of Huntley. Who was the backup for several years, and then he moved on to Cleveland. Don't have a lot of confidence in that backup quarterback position, but hopefully Leary can put on some good tape this week and provide the Baltimore Ravens some hope. And I'm speaking of Devin Leary specifically because he was the first guy off the bench last week in that preseason matchup. So, we'll see. Let's jump to the defense side of the ball. One player that kind of stands out in my mind is Joe Evans, who is a UDFA, a guy who had a really solid college career, but I think he went undrafted because of his size. He's a 6'1", about a 245-pound outside linebacker, which is small for that position. He kind of has the measurables of a Hassan Reddick, who is a guy that we've been linked to for a couple of years, but just never got him in house. Now, am I saying he's Hassan Reddick? Please don't insult my intelligence. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying he has similar measurables. So his small stature doesn't mean he can't play. He put some good tape on display last week, and so my hope is that he can put some good tape on display this week. I have a lot of hope for Joe Evans because it's actually somebody I wanted the Baltimore Ravens to draft late in the draft. But with some injuries ahead of him on that outside linebacker depth chart and question marks about David Ajabo, I think that having a young guy who can come in and compete, especially, again, if he gives the Baltimore Ravens something to think about this week, I think Joe Evans has an opportunity to make this roster at that outside linebacker position. Um, Another player defensively is Bo Braid, a guy who came in who had a lot of hype, being a local kid, and he hasn't done much in this off season until this week, where he had a good showing a couple of days in practice this week. I think it's up in the air if he makes this roster, but I think he's in a battle with the Baltimore Ravens seventh round pick at safety. Uh, I can't remember his name, but you guys know what I'm talking about. Is it Chinusi Kane? Shanusi Kane, I believe that's the guy. He's been good this off season, and so Bo Braid just may be on the outside looking in, but I would like to see what he does, just in case we do have some injuries at the safety position with Marcus Williams, so on and so forth. He's a guy who could be slotted on the practice squad. But those are some guys, man. I think that have a shot to make this roster. These are guys I want to keep an eye on this week. These are guys that I think if they don't make the roster, they certainly can be on the Baltimore Ravens practice squad, especially because all of these guys are young, talented players, and there's nothing better than being able to build out your practice squad with guys who have shown promise in the preseason. Um, I don't have any offensive linemen on my radar at this point in time, but I'm definitely going to be watching the offensive line. Going to be watching to see if Daniel Falele plays tonight. Plays tomorrow night, tomorrow afternoon, and what he does. Going to be paying attention to what Roger Rosengarten does. Um, going to be paying attention closely to Ben Cleveland, who seems like he's securing a roster spot as he has shown versatility to play the center position. So, man, let me know who you guys are keeping an eye on, and let me know who you guys think have a real shot to make this roster. Kind of that guy coming from the back of the pack and showing himself valuable. Listen, I'm your guy Boulanger. This is the GM, and I'm out.